So, today's lecturer, Byron Motley, is a modern-day Renaissance man. He combines his talents as a performer with his skills as a storyteller. Byron holds a master's degree in music from the University of Southern California. As a performer, he has performed on Broadway and worked with such luminaries as Dionne Warwick, Natalie Cole, Celine Dion, Barry Manilow, and the Boston Pops Orchestra. Byron's recently published photographic book, Embracing Cuba, contains nearly 200 color images with 8 essays and explores the richness of the island's culture. His photography has also been featured in Vanity Fair, The Advocate, New York Daily News, and shown in galleries, boutiques, and museums in the United States, Europe, and Cuba. So let's please give a warm welcome to Byron Motley. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin, and good afternoon, everybody. That was a great presentation by Robert. I learned a lot myself, especially about the relationship between Canada and Cuba. I'm American. I'm from Los Angeles, and I've been going to Cuba now for 10 years. I discovered the island in 2005, and I can't stay away. I've been there 18 times in 10 years. It's become my second home, my home away from home. My book is Embracing Cuba, as you heard. It's a photographic book. Contains about 200 photos and 8 essays. And I'm going to start by showing you a little commercial I did for the book. It runs about 2 minutes in length. Give you a little overview. Words alone do not do Cuba justice. They depict only fragments of her mystery and beauty, her strength and fragility, her spirit and song. And so I turned to my camera to capture the Cuba that I love, through both the lens of my camera and my soul. In my heart, I have adopted Cuba as my home away from home. Or should I say she's adopted me? Whichever the case may be, I am honored to have this opportunity to take you with me on this photographic journey to share my scrapbook of memories and moments. So, come along, turn the page, soak it all in. It's a new day. It's time to begin embracing Cuba. So that's my little commercial for my book. A lot of people have asked me through the years, why Cuba? Well, it kind of started back before I was born. My parents actually went to Cuba in a pre-revolutionary Cuba in 1958. That's my mother and father, not in the town, here on the left in Havana, having a great time. My sister was also with them. She was 6 years old at the time. My father was an umpire, and he was going to umpire school in South Florida. And one of his umpire buddies, he was trying to get to the major leagues, but they weren't taking black umpires at that time. And a friend of his who was from Havana suggested, oh, come down to Cuba and umpire there. And, I'll introduce you to some people and possibly you can umpire in Cuba. So off they went from Key West. That's actually the ticket jacket that they have for their air flight ticket from Key West. They paid $10 a ticket, flew from Key West to Havana and spent a week in Cuba, and they loved it. So I grew up hearing these incredible stories about Cuba my entire life. And I thought, I would really like to go there. I want to go there. And there was no way to go because of this travel embargo against Americans. Finally, in 2005, I found out that there was a way that Americans could go and have been going all along. And I took the first flight I could get to Havana after finding out the flight and went. But as I said, my parents went there, pre-revolutionary Cuba. 9 months later, this little guy came along. That's me as a child. And so that's what happened after they got back from Cuba. And that's my first trip in Havana with my camera there, my video cameras. I was taking video images as well. And I love this quote by Ernest Hemingway. I want to read this part of my book to you that comes from the introductory section. It says, "The moment I stepped out of Havana's Jose Marti Airport and walked toward the waiting tour bus, I felt a strange, unexpected, and overwhelming sensation that is difficult to put into words. I distinctly recall hearing a voice inside me whisper, 'I'm home.' Having traveled to many different and fascinating lands since I was a child, I dismissed the voice as simply the overwhelming excitement at having finally arrived in the one place I had dreamed of for so very long. But the whisper persisted. And by the end of my inaugural visit, I began to sense just how prophetic that whisper would actually become. 10 years later, I counted a blessing that my curiosity, my research, my newfound amigos y familia, and the love I feel for my Cuba, as I now affectionately call her, continue to call me back to the island time and time again. I certainly understand Ernie Hemingway's desire to want to stay here forever. I know I certainly do. I am very proud of the fact that the foreword for my book is written by Dr. Mariela Castro Espin, who happens to be the daughter of Raul Castro and the niece of Fidel. As a matter of fact, she will be here at the museum tomorrow night speaking. The same room here, she'll be in the same place tomorrow. What time does it start? 6:45, so she'll be here tomorrow. And I've known Mariela now for about 7 years. I met her through some contacts that work with the Ministry of Culture in Havana, and I was able to meet her and became friends through the years, and she's invited me to Havana several times to not only show my photographs, but also to document her work that she's doing in Havana. She's the director of the Center for Sexual Education in Havana, and so she calls me her official, unofficial photographer, and so it's been really an honor to be acquainted with her through the years now, and to have her write the foreword for my book and to be able to call her friend. So tomorrow night, if you can get back to hear her, she's dynamic, and I think you'll really enjoy hearing her speak as well. So one of the most things I love most about Cuba is, walking around from sunup to sundown with my camera and taking pictures of anything and everything. And one of the most fun things to take pictures of course, are the people. The people is what really makes Cuba the most special place that it is. I mean, you have the wonderful patina of the buildings, you have this great architecture, you have great sports, you have great food in some instances. Yeah, there's a lot of great things about Cuba, but it's really the people that make the country the most exciting part, the most interesting part of the visit. Skipping over some of these pictures, not meaning to do that. But as you can tell, they're very bright, vibrant people. They may lack materially compared to other societies, and especially the Western societies, but they have a spirit about them that they are able to get through that. And as Robert said before, they just, they know how to, they've learned to adapt through the years. And so they're a vibrant, loving, welcoming people. Being an American, as you can imagine, my first few trips there, I was really intimidated how they would treat me. And never fails, and because I look the way I do, they think I am Cuban. So many times, if I have my camera with me, I'm walking down the street, they'll stop at me and say, where are you from? And I tell them I'm from the United States, and the first thing they do is they throw up in their arms, they embrace me, they hug me, say, "Oh my God, you're my friend, you're my brother, I love the United States." I've never had one instance of anybody saying anything negative about the United States or the relationship between the countries in the 10 years I've been going there. So that's really phenomenal that that there is that kinship among people, that people are people no matter what, no matter their political differences or how the governments are trying to work out their thing. But the people what makes this country so incredibly wonderful. This picture is kind of interesting because walking down the street, if I hear a party going on in someone's home and the door is open, being the nosy person that I am and the investigator as a photographer, I'll just mosey in and walk on into the people's house and start taking pictures. This is one instance of that, and the lady decided to make me get up and dance with her. So again, the rum was pouring. They welcomed me into their home, and it was like I was part of the family in that half hour or 45 minutes that I was there in their home. So that's who Cubans are. They're embracing, they're loving people, and they're just a lot of fun. Also, if you're taking pictures of people, if you see the finger go up like that, that means that some people want to charge you $1 for a photograph, to make money off of you, which is just gentlemen did. And another finger they give you is, this means, no, don't you dare take my picture. So you have to learn the difference between what the two are. But most people don't really mind you taking their photographs. This is a map of Cuba. It's a alligator-shaped country. Actually has 14 different provinces throughout the island. That's expanded over the years. I think initially it was like 6 or 7 provinces, but now they've divided up into a few more provinces. I've been lucky enough to travel through most of the island, by now, and most provinces except for 2, and the capital being Havana, of course, at the top there, and each province has their own personality. The people are different in each province, and the landscape is a little different. So it's really interesting that when you travel throughout the island that you see how each province has its own personality. The people in Santiago de Cuba are a little bit more aggressive. If you tell them, no, I don't want a taxi, they'll keep hounding you for the next block. In other places, they don't bother you at all, like Las Tunas, which is down towards the bottom middle of the country. People don't bother you there at all. So it's really interesting to experience the different types of personalities of the people and the landscape that make up this very rich country. I get asked a lot by Americans in particular, is it safe to travel to Cuba? And yes, it is. It's probably the safest country in this hemisphere to travel to. There's a police presence on most streets where tourists are mingling about. So there's a police presence, and so it's very, very safe to travel to Cuba. I also walk around with expensive camera equipment through barrios and neighborhoods I would never ever dream of walking in the United States. Dark and damp and no lights. But in Cuba, I feel no pressure, and I don't feel nervous about it at all. So I know that there's a safe presence there, and people watch out for you also. When they see me with my camera, some of the older people will tell me, hang on to your camera, keep it close. Unfortunately, petty crimes are on the rise a little bit more in Cuba now. That things are starting to open up a little bit, but it's still a very, very safe country to travel to, so you won't really have any issues there as long as you're mindful about your whereabouts and what you're doing. I get asked also the question by a lot of Americans, are Cubans excited now about the new diplomatic relations? And as Robert mentioned, he kind of answered that question before. I think you asked the question. They're cautiously excited and optimistic about the new relationship. The issues that come up for most Cubans that I've talked to in the last few months from visiting, they're leery about 2 things that America might bring and influence in their country, and that's violence and drugs. And unfortunately, that's kind of a sad statement about the United States, but that's what they're mostly concerned about. But they're excited about the Americans are now more free to travel there, and the relationships are normalized. They are very, like I said, cautiously optimistic that things are going to work out fine on their behalf. Are people allowed to photograph and videotape anything they would like? Yes, except in the airport, and you're also not allowed to photograph the military people or the police officers. They don't really want you to do that. But other than that, you're pretty much free to capture anything you want. I actually accidentally, the reason I put this slide up because the policeman on the right side, I kind of accidentally caught him in the frame of the picture, but he didn't seem to mind. But usually that's kind of offhand or off limits. Getting around Havana, and the island can be a little dicey at times. This is a driver and two drivers I hired once to go from Havana to Santa Clara in the middle of the highway. As you can see, we're out in the middle of nowhere. The car has a flat tire. But they got out. They told me, no, don't worry, we're going to get it fixed. And in 10 minutes' time, they had it fixed, and we're well on our way again. But if you do go to Cuba and you do decide to rent a car to go from different cities, I would just be aware that your car may get a flat tire. You may have problems with the car, which has happened to me a couple of times. But if you're on the middle of a highway, don't stress out. Just flag a Cuban down, which I have done, and some gentleman will gladly help you get the car going back, and they'll fix it right there in the spot for you. So it's a pretty easy country to get around, and there's also buses that take you. You can also hire a private driver, like I've done in the past, which is really the easiest way really to get around. Hire a private driver and sit back and enjoy the journey. The music and entertainment in Cuba is absolutely incredible. Everywhere you go, there's music playing. Walking down the street, you go in people's homes, bars, restaurants, schools. There's always an era of music that's being played, either in the Malecón, in bars, as I said, restaurants. It's pretty incredible, and it's always top-notch musicianship. Have some great musicians playing either solo in the streets or like the other group picture of them playing together. So it's really phenomenal, and some really top-class acts as well. And again, these are some street musicians just playing and having a great time, and they were phenomenal. So if you're a music lover, you're going to love the music of Cuba. I'm privileged that in 2009, for 3 years, I had unprecedented access to photograph the baseball in Cuba. I'm a big baseball fan, and I was able to get access to photograph the players to go on the field. I was not allowed to travel with them or anything like that, but I was allowed to go on the field. And I was the first and only American photographer who's ever been allowed that privilege. So I'm quite honored with that. These two players here, Jose Iglesias, who's then playing with La Havana team, and Yasmani Thomas, are now both major league players, ironically. They both defected several years ago, and now Jose Iglesias is with the Detroit Tigers, and Yasmani is with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I'm honored that I saw them play in Cuba, and just surprisingly, I had photos in my cache of photos, of 100,000 photos I've taken in Cuba. They just happen to be amongst those photographs as well. So, warning, if you do go to Cuba and you're walking down the street and you see these delicious-looking drinks that, in a hot day, you think, oh, I'm parched, I don't have any water, I would love to just have a sip of one of these. Don't drink that. I learned the hard way. And so avoid those. Only get bottled water and drinks from restaurants and other sources. You don't want to eat any of the street food or the or drink any of those beautiful looking drinks there, because you'll end up like me, having a not too good of experience with that. So I'm going to open up to any questions anybody may have. Any further questions anybody has? Yes.
When you're traveling, I understand that there's a shuttle service that goes from Santa Clara to Havana now. Is that correct? Like in the hotel district in Santa Clara?
From Santa Clara to yes.
There is a shuttle.
There's a shuttle. There's also a bus station that's not too far from the downtown area also that will take you from Santa Clara to Havana.
How expensive is it to rent a car there?
An automatic is like $45, $50 a day. I'm sorry, stick shift, and the automatics are anywhere between 60 and 90, depending on where you get them from. I don't drive a stick shift, lazy American, so it's cost me a little bit more, but yeah. So it's not a bad price, $45, $50 a day.
Arrange the private driver. How much is a private driver? And you said, barter negotiation.
Barter negotiation, yes. Usually the driver I had for several years became a friend of mine, so I would pay him like $75 a day. I'd pay for his lodging, which is like $10 a night for him, and pay for all the gas. So you work it out with whatever driver you end up engaging. There are you just get a sense of, if you see a driver, you ask them, hey, can you take me to such and such place? And if you build up a rapport, relationship, then that's how you kind of, there's no standard place you can call or use or service that you can call it to rent a driver. It's just meeting someone on the street that you feel like you trust, you get a relationship with, personal relationship with. I trust this person, a good guy, can take me where I want. And most Cubans are pretty safe. You're going to be in good hands, because the penalties for harming tourists there are severe for Cubans, so they know to be respectful of tourists. No, not well at all. But I make do. I've gotten better through the years. It's still not perfect. Any other questions? Yes?
Any changes over the 10 years?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In what way? More private ownership of businesses now, especially in the last 5 or 6 years since Raul has taken over. He's allowed Cubans to open up more restaurants and little private businesses that sell everything from personal hygiene things to beautiful restaurants. Some beautiful restaurants in Havana now. And I think a lot of the money that they get to open those restaurants have come from some relatives that are here stateside in other countries. They send money to Cuba and help them set up those businesses. And there's some incredible places now that weren't there 10 years ago when I first started going. And the food has improved dramatically as well. There's always been the staple of the chicken and the rice and the pork and the yuca, and so. But it's come a long way. And I love eating the vegetables and the fruit, because everything there is organic. And so you bite into a mango and you think, oh my God, this is what a mango really tastes like. So the taste is completely different. It's just incredible. So cuisine has come a long way.
Renovating buildings, you hear a lot of the deterioration of the architecture.
Yes, especially in Old Havana. They're doing a lot of restorations there, and I think the target date for the Malecón, because they're restoring all the buildings along the Malecón, I believe that's supposed to be complete by 2017, and that's been in development now for at least 4 or 5 years. They've been restructuring the Malecón. So yeah, you see construction going on everywhere. I mean, there's dust flying everywhere from the restorations they're doing on a lot of the buildings now, and it's transforming. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful, especially Old Havana. It's just magical. It's magical.
Have you traveled by bicycle in the rural areas?
I have not, but I have friends who have done it, and they've loved it.
They felt safe as far
Oh,
as
absolutely.
Cuban drivers.
Yeah,
they.
yeah. No one's had any problems. I've seen bicyclists there also, as I've traveled throughout the island, just cycling away. Yeah. So, are you a cyclist yourself, or what?
Not particularly, but
Okay.
I have some friends that are going to go next year, and they're
Oh.
asking me to go. So I'm just
Okay.
thinking of it.
Yeah. Great. So, any other questions? Okay. Well, I think Robert answered a lot of the questions you may have had, and so. So, thank you for coming out this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
So, thank you again, Byron, and on behalf of the museum, here's a token of our appreciation.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for coming out to our Havana Dialogue. As Byron mentioned, tomorrow night we have another event as part of our Havana Dialogue series. Dr. Mariela Castro Espin will be here at 6:45 p.m. If you are interested, this will be a ticketed event and tickets will be $8 each. If you are interested in attending a different dialogue, we have one next Sunday, on Sunday, November 29th at 1:30 p.m. with Dr. Luz Maria Hernandez from Western University. She'll be talking about the Cuban Revolution. So thank you again. And both 3 Nights in Havana and Embracing Cuba will be available for purchase at our visitor services desk. Thank you and have a great day.